some brilliant ideas from the speakers, which come from 4 different parts of the world and from different function in the economy. On my left side here, we have Miss Christina Pruitt, who is the member of the Digital Agriculture Association, head of digital crop protection strategy from Bayer Crop Science. On the far left with Mr. Sorry, Mr. Freestone, Mr. Jake Freestone, who is the farm manager at Overberry Farms, UK. He had received many awards as a farmer. If I may mention a couple of most recent ones, the recipient of the 2022 BBC Farming Today Farming for the Future Award, the 2021 Farmers Weekly Environmental Champion of the British Farming Awards, etc. So he's going to provide views from the ground. Online, we are going to have 2 speakers. One is Mr. Stanley Oliveira, who is the head of Embrapa from Digital Agriculture from Brazil. He's going to participate from Brazil. And then last but not least, we have Ms. Patience Koku, also doing it online. She is the CEO of Replenish Farms from Nigeria. So without further ado, I think I would like to ask the first speakers. I would go in this order, Ms. Christina, and then Mr. Stanley. They will provide perspective from business and then from government, and then we will have ideas and conversations from real farmers on the ground. Miss Patience Koku and Mr. Jake Freestone. I will. Before I forget, I must say that Mr. Jake Freestone here is participating, speaking as in his capacity as a farmer and not as a representative from the UK government or from the association. So he can be freely say what he wants to say as a farmer. So now I think I would like to open the floor to our first speaker, Ms. Christina. You have the floor.
Madam Ambassador, it's a true pleasure to be here today, and thank you for your interest. As mentioned, my name is Christina Pruitt, and I'm presenting today on behalf of the Digital Agriculture Association, but also Bayer Crop Science, the company I've been working for the last 26 years. And it's my true pleasure to share with you more about digital agriculture specifically. And I'm really passionate about digital agriculture because I believe with a combination of data science and application technology, we can truly solve some of the most pressing issues we see in agriculture and in the world today. Very specifically, I'm talking here about food security and climate change. So with food security, we all know that 1 in 10 people is suffering from hunger. Just over the last 2 years, 150 million have been pushed into acute hunger. And that situation is deteriorating further with the war in Ukraine, stressing supply chains even further, driving up the price for feed, food, fertilizer, and energy. On the other hand, we see the dramatic impacts of climate change with more severe weather events all around the world. Each region in the world has seen severe situations that are affecting agriculture tremendously. If we look at Europe, we've seen a severe drought, record high temperatures that do affect how crops can be grown and the yields. But I do believe we can actually make a difference and we can change the situation if we rethink how we farm, if we rethink ag, if we really deploy and adapt the innovation that is possible, and that is including digital solution. So what is digital? To me, digital is really a better decision making using big data. and data science to make sense of all the information that we have on the farm, all the information that is in the value chain. And with that, getting really, truly more out of the inputs we use and produce more with less. But this is also a good reminder at this point to say, digital by itself does not work. It's not solving the issues by itself. It enables us to use the tools we have in our toolbox better and smarter. To use a very concrete example, a digital algorithm is not killing a weed that is competing with a crop. It can allow us to use those tools much more efficiently. So I truly believe we as an industry, we need to take this on. We need to do this together with our customers, our farm customers, and together with partners, whether that's public, private. And we're really committed to doing so. So as a crop protection industry alone, we have committed to invest 10 billion by 2030 into digital tools. That is in addition to the R&D investments we have going on anyways. So what I want to do today is really bring you some concrete examples of where I think digital can really make a difference. And I want to talk about 3 areas here. One is, how do we produce more with less? The second one is, how can digital support carbon sequestration on the farm? And the third one is making value chains, food chain, more transparent and more predictable. All 3, I think, are key to really address the issue of food security and climate change. So when I talk about producing more with less, it's really getting the most out of each kernel of seed that we put in the ground. And so I want to use the example of our smart corn system. And I'm going to use a few Bayer examples just because I'm most familiar with them, but they're just representative to a number of other things that members of the association and of the industry do. So the smart corn system, let me start with the seed. Here, it's really based on a game-changing corn technology, which is short stature corn. So corn that has been developed to grow 30 to 40% shorter than conventional corn. So what does that mean? Why does it matter if it's shorter? It actually allows us to get more plants per acre seeded. It also allows that shorter crop to withstand wind events and other climatic stresses much better. It has a different root system, which allows to retain more soil moisture. So all these things are aspects that allow us to drive more yield. But it's also a very different way to grow this crop. So now this is where digital comes into play and why we call it a smart system. It's not just the seed, it's in combination with the digital recommendation that is really tailored for a specific farm, for a specific field, to bring the recommendation. Probably what we hear just in a minute from Jake is typical decisions that a farmer needs to make every year. What variety do I choose? When do I plant it? How much do I plant? How many plants? How do I fertilize it? And that really depends on each field. It depends on the soil, it depends on the weather, it depends on past management practices. So again, you see there's all these decision factors, and this is where tools like the FieldView farming platform can really help. It combines all the information on the farm in one place. That is weather information, satellite information, soil data points, as I mentioned, past management, past yields, all that information is coming from the machinery and is in one place so that we can really analyze it and give the recommendation that is best for this field. With that, again, the theme is how do we get most out of that each seed that we put in the ground? But it doesn't stop with the seed. Now we actually need to nurture that crop. We need to protect it. And when I talk about crop protection, we have to bear in mind that crop protection measures today protect 40% of overall worldwide production. Without crop protection, we would produce 40% less. That's a massive amount. And so again, imagine where today we treat in an entire field with a herbicide to take out competing weeds that impact yield significantly. With technology, with digital technology and artificial intelligence, we can now detect what is a weed and what is a crop, and really target the herbicide only where there's a weed in the field, thus significantly reducing the amount of inputs that gets used in that field. So you still do what you need to do to protect your crop, but you're doing it with a lot less. And the more precise you go, the more you can save. Disease management would be another example, which is really key, especially in fairly wet environments. Disease has a major impact on yield. But the thing is, once we see the symptoms on a leaf, it's too late. The damage is done. The crop is already diseased and the yield impact is there. So one of the difficult decisions a farmer needs to make every year is, do I spray? And when do I spray? Because again, you want to get that timing when it's the most effective. So having machine learning algorithms that take all that information and compute it, and with that, with the experience that you bring as a farmer, understanding your land, your crop, plus the big data that has been analyzed, and to get that predictive algorithm really allows us to make a difference. So I hope you can tell I'm pretty passionate about these things, so because I do feel they truly make a difference. And these are just a couple of what happens on the farm and how we can use digital to produce more with less. But I want to switch over to carbon sequestration. Again, here, digital is pretty key to as a tool to measure, verify, and report some of the climate mitigation measures that a farmer is doing on their farm. And so to that end, we as Bayer have put together a climate program, a carbon program back in 2020, which is now used in more than 10 countries around the world. And really that is to reward farmers for climate change mitigation measures, to sequester more carbon in the soil, because we know plants are a wonderful mechanism to sequester carbon. But in order to do that, you should not disturb the soil with tilling. So we reward farmers for adopting some of those practices like no-till and also using cover crops. And then the last thing is taking digital not just on the farm, but taking it to the larger ecosystem, the entire value chain. And again, here, we believe digital can also overcome some of the asymmetries we see in the value chain today. To improve livelihoods of especially smallholder farmers, it's important to connect them with insights, but also with additional services, such as the financing industry, such as the off-takers and the downstream market. So really the idea is, how can we use digital to connect the entire value chain from the farm to the consumer? And to that end, we have actually partnered with Microsoft to really use what we have built in terms of digital assets and our agronomy knowledge with the capabilities of Microsoft to build a tool and an ecosystem that the entire value chain, the entire industry can use, because we don't think there is an opportunity so that not every player in the industry has to really build their own, but we can build and scale much, much faster. Yeah, I'm just going to make two more points, and that is we've seen tremendous advancements, but at the same time, we feel the technology can be exploited even more. And what is holding us back is a number of things. It's access to the technology, it's connectivity, education, but also the right regulatory environments to really enable this. And so we feel digital farming should be really on top of policymakers' agendas and in the debates. With that, to drive the adoption, but also really target technology development to solve these challenges that we just talked about. To that end, we as Bayer really call on governments around the world to make this a national, or to create national strategies for digital farming, which ideally would include 4 key elements. The first one being data policies that on the one hand enshrines that the data is owned by the farmer, but also allows data flow and data interoperability. The second one is really investing in connectivity infrastructure to get the broadband and the wireless and cell service out onto the farm into rural areas. The third one being regulatory frameworks and policies that drive adoption of these technologies. And the last one, again, is recognizing digital agriculture as a key component of sustainability. And with that, I'm just going to conclude that the challenges are huge, but I am optimistic we can solve them. I truly believe that. And what we need to do is focus on innovation. We need to focus on partnership. And we have the knowledge, we have the science, we need to make it happen. And if we combine that with the resolve, the coordination, and bold action, I think we can truly make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so that's a perspective from the technology side. Christina ran a little bit over, but you won't be punished because I also love digital agriculture. But okay, let's go on to the next speaker so we can keep the time and then we can come back to questions later. Our next speaker would be speaking from Brazil, Mr. Stanley Oliveira, who is the head of Embrapa Digital Agriculture Brazil. He's a government representative. Yeah, so the floor is yours because Christina just mentioned right now that government regulatory and support are vital to the adoption. So let's hear from you, Mr. Stanley.
Thank you, Madam Ambassador. Before I start my presentation, I'd like to greet everyone and say thank you for this opportunity to take part of this event and take part of the discussions. So I will be highlighting the climate risk zone, one of the best known examples of public policies in Brazil and also around the world. In my presentation, I'd like to mention in the beginning some information related to Embrapa, Brazilian Agricultural Research Corporation. We are a network of 43 research and development centers throughout the country, split into 3 categories: thematic centers working across different and many production chains. The second one is product centers working in a specific products such as Embrapa cotton, Embrapa soybean, Embrapa rice, and so on. And the last one is eco-regional centers. We work in very large areas such as biomes in Brazil, adapting production system for different areas. Our mission in Brazil is to provide research and development and innovation solutions for the sustainability of agriculture and for the benefit of the Brazilian society. Regarding our social report, this document quantifies the social profit on the company during the year. For each real invested in Embrapa in 2021, we returned 23.38 reals to the Brazilian society in the form of technology, knowledge, and jobs. We also understand the value of technology as a driver of change. We have carried out 3 studies in 3 different agricultural censuses in Brazil. In 1995, we reached 50.6% of the production increase using technology in the field. In 2006, this number reached 56.8%. in terms of growth of gross value of production. And in 2017, we reached 60.6 in terms of growth of value of gross value of production. So this is, we call agriculture driven by science. And Embrapa Digital Agriculture is focused basically in three main axes. The first one is to support public policies. The second, for market regulation. And third, public and private decision making. Now, regarding the climate risk agriculture zoning, Brazil is one of, in Brazil, SARC, this is a Brazilian acronym for climate risk agriculture zoning, is one of the best in all programs for support public policies. Brazil, just to give you an idea, we produce food to feed over 800 million people. So agriculture in Brazil represents 27% of our gross domestic product. But Brazil is still losing around 11 billion a year due to extreme risks. Some of relate to frost and droughts and excessive rainfall. So we need to deal with this big problem. This is a great challenge for us. The climate variations in Brazil is very large. If you take account the countries in Brazil, this number varies from 33% to 60%. In Brazil, this number varies from 15 to 75%. So we need strong relationships with the government, the academia, and also the productive sector to address those challenges. We have a partnership with the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Food Supply, Embrapa, and Central Bank of do Brazil for the operationalization of the agricultural credit on a national scale. So we have 33 research units of Embrapa working together. This is a network of over 400 research spread out in the country to reduce the risk during the year. We have a framework to address those problems with more than 45 crops, including soybean, corn, sugarcane, rice, beans, and so on. So the idea is, if you follow the rules from the SARC, those rules are imposed by the Ministry of Agriculture. A farmer can go to the banks and get some loans to use in their production. So in doing so, they need to hire a insurance, because if they follow the rule, the risk could be at most 20%. When they don't follow the risk, this number could increase to 30 or even to 40%. So we have developed mobile applications. This is for free. Farmers in different parts of Brazil, including small, medium, and large farmers, can benefit from this information generated by SARC in Brazil. So SARC answered 3 questions. When should they plant? The first one. The second, what is the best cultivar for that area? And the third one, when should they plant? So following those rules, you reduce the risk, and you say that they will get the most, and they don't need to expand the planted area to get the same production and the productivity. So SARC in Brazil has a very strong impact in the agricultural credit. Just to give you an idea, adopting SARC, in the last year, we saved 8.7 billion of reals, just in terms of reducing insurance claims in Brazil. So this is a very important point for us because you are working together with the government to give more opportunity, to expand the technology, to train the most of farmers in Brazil to use this and to increase their production and their productivity. So ZARC's focus is to reach bigger harvest, increase the efficiency and sustainability, and enhance profitability. This is a very interesting program that regulates the agricultural credit in Brazil. Just to give you an idea, in 2000 last year, 2021, for the harvest 2021, we get in this kind of program the number of the amount of insurance reaches 45 billion of real. This is equivalent to $8.5 billion just to organize the insurance for the farmers in Brazil. So ZARC allows small, as I told you, medium and large producers to identify the best sowing time, and for each soil, municipality, and production system. So this is a very interesting program. You have basically two most important goals. The first one is to reach bigger harvests, as I mentioned before. But the second one, you have prepared a digital platform with the information related to the best time, the best sowing time. So you can offer this information to our partners and to support the innovation ecosystem. So they can, by using a business model, access our data, algorithms, our scenarios, for example, scenarios for threats and the best scenarios and the best time to sow in Brazil. So this is available in our platform, and you have, just to close my presentation, to tell you that we have quality digital service to strengthen the innovation ecosystem, and you have organized reliable database for the development of models, applications, websites, apps, and so on. And this is available in the entire territory of Brazil for all the kind of farmers. I think that's it. And I'm ready, and questions are very welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stanley. I think from our first two presenters, it is quite clear that we need to have the tools and also the platform, but also the data management. So maybe these will be the questions that I will ask later. But before going that, let us hear experiences from our two speakers who are real farmers who are working on the ground and see whether what the private sectors and the government regulators have said something that will solve your problem or not. Let me, maybe not yet, but we always have to be hopeful. May I invite Ms. Patience Koku, CEO of Replenish Farms from Nigeria. She's a recipient of the 2018 Cornell Alliances for Science Farmer of the Year and the 2019 Kleckner Award from the Global Farmer Network, among other things. And she used to work in fashion industry. So now she's just going to use her flair as a farmer. So let's hear examples from Ms. Patience. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Ambassador. I'm a farmer from Nigeria, first generation farmer. And I transitioned from fashion to farming, like Madam Ambassador just said, in another lifetime. And I say that farming is by far the most difficult thing that I've had to do in my life, being that it is more challenging than one could have ever imagined. Farming is challenging all over the world. But you know, when we talk about food security and the need to grow more food with less, farmers are burdened with that responsibility. And farming requires for us to take everyone along. And so everywhere in the world, it's important to tailor solutions to the specific needs of the farmers. But more importantly, like you're doing today, it's a very, very, very welcome thing to have farmers at the table. And I'm very honored to be speaking here today. Christine has spoken to the fact that there are solutions that are available for farmers. And one of the things that is so vital, and we heard from Mbrapa as well, is the fact that farmers need every tool in the box to succeed. So there's nothing we can take away, so to speak. We need everything that is available to us to be able to produce more. In some climes, like in Nigeria where I live, it's even more challenging to be a farmer. And the reason is because of a lack of access. So we don't have access to mechanization. I'm a member of the Global Farmer Network, and my colleague in other countries have some things that are very, very accessible to them, you know, tractors, tractors, and so on, you know, things that make farming easier and more productive. That is not the case for us in some parts of the world. And so it's important, you know, for us to have access to all of these things. And so when there are challenges like the digital solutions that we've seen, you know, when they are able to take all our challenges, we have challenges with mechanization, with seed, with market, you know, it's the entire value chain. And nowadays, it's even more pressing and more demanding because of the challenges that we've had with first COVID-19, then climate change getting worse, and then, of course, now with the war in Ukraine. The world is so globally knit. And so when these solutions are there, it's important to get them to the farmers, you know, and for farmers to be able to uptake that technology. I'll speak about one in particular that I've had access to in my country lately. It's the pod borer resistant cowpea. It's a BT cowpea. Now, cowpea is a very important crop for us in Africa, and in Nigeria, very, very especially, because it's a really cheap source of protein. So when you have people who are grappling with poverty and milk and meat are out of the question, then cowpea is the staple. But unfortunately, cowpea has become more and more expensive by the day. And it's become more challenging because farmers get really bad yields. And that's because there's a particular worm called the maruca worm that bores into the pods of the cowpea and destroys the harvest, basically. And so this cowpea that we have, the PBR cowpea, has been bred to be able to resist that worm. Now, we've adopted that technology. It's working perfectly. We have far better yields. For the first time, I'm able to grow cowpea commercially, you know, and make money from cowpea. We have the residue from the cowpea that we use and sell as fodder for the animal feed as well, you know. So it does create for the farmer a source of revenue, you know. And so these technologies are so vital because you're talking about countries where the average yield of corn, for example, which is a staple cereal that we grow and eat here, is still at about 1 to 2 tons per hectare. That's a far cry from what it is all over the world. And so you see that there is such a pressing need to use technology, digital innovations to be able to enhance productivity for us, you know, in countries where we are very challenged. However, I've noticed something that farmers want to adopt technology, but there are limitations or bottlenecks. So sometimes we wonder, if I grow cowpea in a country where we are major exporters of cowpea, would my cowpea now not be able to be sold, you know, because there are trade limitations to other countries where policy would limit me or restrict me? And so there are many things that governments need to look at that will help farmers, you know, to adopt technology much easier I'm a first generation farmer. I've done this for maybe like 16 years now, but I noticed that older farmers are not very, very comfortable with change. And so, you know, when farmers want to change, and they have to change because the world is changing, how do we help farmers from the policy point of view? Because there's industry working on technology that we need, and talking to farmers, bringing farmers to the table, because I always say something. I say that if I need a motorcycle, a very basic motorcycle, and you give me an airplane because you didn't ask me, and you felt that an airplane will be far better for me than a motorcycle, you haven't helped me, because then the airplane will be of no use. So if we bring all of this together and we can have technology, you know, digital tools, you know, seed that works, that helps us that are resistant to disease, that helps to help us to sequester carbon, all the tools and all the innovation. What policies need to be in place to help us so that we are not limited? How do we adopt it easily, knowing that there are no barriers with trade, you know, that would stop me from growing those technologies? And finally, you know, I'd like to say that it is so vital in the world now more than ever to have farmer voices at the table, but more than that, you know, to be able to tailor solutions that are very specific to countries and even regions, you know, because farming is so diverse, and with climate change, we're facing so many different things. We have pests that we never had before. We have issues with rain and drought. And so all of these innovations like PBR cowpea have been given to us, you know, and all of that. So we need to push more and to make sure that no one is left behind in all of the innovations and the technology. And that is going to be very, very possible by simply scaling down, you know, technology to be adopted or adoptable for farmers all over the world, so that we can benefit from all these wonderful innovations and technology. And we can do our bit to ensure food security, because farmers truly are the bedrock of agriculture. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Patience. But since you still have about 2.5 minutes, I will ask you one question. You talk about the things that help you with cowpea, which is a main staple. I presume that the technology that you use mainly was like the GM, you know, the genetically modified. But is there any other technology that has been helping you in your moving up the productivity? I'm very interested and share your views that farmers in developing countries, in Thailand as well, we don't need too advanced technology. We want something that we can use on the ground. So can you share with me a little bit further on your ideas about this?
Yes. Okay, so one of the things that we're doing currently, one of the technologies, and coincidentally, my co-farmer is going to speak to that, so I'll just mention it very briefly, is zero tillage. So because tractors are really expensive for us in many developing countries, right? So, and the fact that farmers till the soil and we weaken our soils, you know, and we make our soils less productive. We have combined on our fields, and we're promoting nationally zero tillage. So that's one of the technologies that we're using that really does help us, you know, to be able to be more productive. There's also other technologies, you know, that we're looking at, because of course, as we go every day, it's important to have, you know, farmers have access to whatever innovations, you know, there are out there. But I would say that for right now, what we're looking at is a combination of conservative agriculture, you know, with the right seeds, because that's the foundation and the bedrock of growing a productive crop. So those are key things that we're looking at, you know, and we're doing, and it has really, really helped us to be able to grow more using less, and to have a better production, and also more importantly, to maintain our soil and to sequester carbon, help with climate change. You know, our crops are more drought tolerant when we grow them without tilling. Yeah, so that's one of the major things that we're doing currently.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. You were right on time. So I'll come back to you. But right now, let's move on from Nigeria to the United Kingdom to Mr. Jake Freestone, who, as I have said earlier, is a he had won many awards as farmers in the UK. So let's hear experiences of farmers in the United Kingdom. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Ambassador and fellow delegates. Thank you very much for this opportunity. As Patience was saying, it's great to have farmers in the room actually giving experiences from the field. The voices from the field is so important. I want to present to you today my thoughts about increasing food security with sustainable production methods, effectively doing more with less. And that has so many benefits in terms of food production, but environmental awareness, biodiversity and conservation of our natural world. It's also great to see a fellow Global Farmer Network member on the big screen as well, which is great news. So I farm at Overbury, which is about 2 hours west of London in the United Kingdom. That farm has been in the same ownership, unfortunately not mine, for the last 300 years. So we have a lot of tradition and a lot of history, and I've been tasked with improving the asset, which is the soil, to hand down to the next generation. And this is really important in the current climate change scenarios that we face ourselves in. We are about 1,600 hectares on the farm. We farm another 200 hectares for a neighbour next door, cropping wheat, barley, oilseed rape, canola, peas, beans, flax. We have an area of grass as well. We're a mixed farm, so we have 950 ewes that lamb in springtime on the fields as well. So we're quite a busy farm. Not only are we farming, we have a nursery school who are out on the farm all the time, engaging with the farm, engaging with the environment, and actually educating children from a young age is so important about where their food comes from and how we can look after the environment and produce that food for them. We're members of LEAF. LEAF is Linking Environment and Farming. And they have 9 principles of integrated pest management or integrated farm management. And Patience mentioned it just now. It's about rotation. It's about varieties, picking the right crop in the right field in the right year. And there are lots of digital solutions that can help us make those decisions. Since completing my Nuffield Farming Scholarship, which I did in 2013, we've moved into a regenerative farming system. And I want to try and explain a little bit about how that is and how that affects us. But before that, the challenges that we face, many of which has been mentioned before. The climate, the weather events that we have. Farmers have always dealt with the weather. It's nothing new, but the changes that we're seeing in our climate are absolutely huge. And it creates a massive problem for food production around the world. You look at Australia at the moment with droughts. The heat that we had in the United Kingdom this summer, it's probably nothing to a lot of countries, but for us, it really was quite a shock. And actually, drought is still the biggest yield robber in the UK, surprisingly or not. We farm with about 700 millimetres of water every year. This year, we're at just over 400. We have political challenges, governments change. We have the war in Ukraine that creates uncertainty and volatility. That helps increase the risks and potentially reduces our productivity. We have input costs massively rising. Anglian farmers suggested that the farming inflation in the UK is running at 34% at the moment, with fertilizer at 134%. We have supply chain issues. We've had COVID issues. We have labour supply issues, skilled labour in fresh vegetable production, dairy and arable. It's all a challenge. And then you have potential trade deals in the future and how farmers are able to market their produce across the global markets. So important to be able to trade sensibly and sustainably. We also have a lot of data that we're collecting, data overload to some degree. It's how we manage that data, how we can use it. Christina's big data scenario about gathering information, but actually making that work for us to help us produce our food. In 2015, the Paris Climate Change Accord talked about the 4 per 1,000 initiative for countries to draw down more carbon from the atmosphere than they're sequestering, than they are emitting. They asked, how can we do this? And the answer is by scaling up regenerative agriculture, grazing and better land use practices. Practices that lead to more photosynthesis, taking carbon from the air, locking it in the plants and in the soil, effectively reducing the issues of climate change and building resilience in our farming and our food systems. So I'd like to share with you a few methods that we are looking at to help offset some of the damage that we've been creating. The first one is moving the soil as little as possible. Direct drilling or no-till is hugely positive in terms of water management. It builds organic matter in the soil surface. That organic matter is like a sponge. The bigger that sponge can be, the more water you can hold, the more nutrients you can hold. So in times of a dry weather, you've got a bigger reserve. It also means that when we get downpours of water, that water can go through the soil. It can exit through the filtration system rather than run off, taking fertilizer, taking pesticides with it into the watercourses. This has huge benefits for soil health, but healthy soil means healthy plants mean healthy food means healthy people. So it is completely cyclical. Greenhouse gas emissions on our farm through removal of cultivation have just about halved. We've moved from 103 tons of CO2 equivalent on planting crops down to just over 60 through the switch to no-till. Our fuel use is down from 52 litres a hectare per crop of wheat that we grow down to 17. So it has huge environmental benefits. It has huge profitability benefits, which builds in more resilience. Not moving the soil, keeping it covered, keeps it cooler. Again, vitally important when we're talking about hot weather in the summer and the extremes of the weather. This is beneficial for deep burrowing earthworms, the anaic earthworms that help with drainage that can burrow down to 2 meters. And they are affected badly by cultivation. Their population can reduce. I do spend quite a lot of time digging holes, counting worms. This also reduces our cost of production. So our cost of growing a crop of wheat, for instance, in terms of ploughing and going into direct drilling has fallen from £160 a hectare down to 45. So there are some financial benefits for farmers as well. Better drainage through better soil management reduces nitrous oxide emissions, which are 300 times more damaging than carbon dioxide. This increasing the efficiency also enables us to save time, which is important when we're already very busy people. The second principle of regenerative or conservation agriculture is keeping the soil covered. Residues, we call it soil armor. This protects the soil surface from the air, from wind, and from rain erosion, all of which is reducing that asset that we treasure so deeply. Growing plants boosts carbon dioxide. Growing plants to capture carbon dioxide and sequester it in the soil is measured by digital agriculture, carbon calculators, and blockchain certification to actually make sure that that carbon is locked up for a significant period of time. Cover cropping also fills and feeds soil microbes and fungi. This helps reduce the runoff even further by having a population that can keep the soil in a firm state without compacting it. But we need diversity in there. We don't need monocultures. So legumes, grasses, brassicas, all part of that. The third principle will be rotation. So how can we rotate our crops around our field? This gives us lots of risk management tools in terms of planting times, sowing times, and harvest times. It reduces the reliance on certain chemistry families, and reduces the chance of resistance building up. All key aspects of having a sustainable farming system. It gives us marketing strategies. It spreads our labor and machinery profiles. It builds soil health during that rotation. If you imagine it like a bank account, your cover crops and your rotations are depositing carbon in the soil, and then you're withdrawing that when you have your harvested crops. And like most bank accounts, you want to deposit more than you withdraw. The fourth principle is about livestock integration. And this is about the above ground livestock, in our case, sheep, but cattle, chickens, pigs, but also the underground. Did you know that there were more organisms in a teaspoon of soil than there are people on the planet? These mixing farming systems have benefits of both enterprises: fertility building in the soil, organic matter deposition, pest removal in some circumstances, And where we graze cover crops, we try to leave about 50% left to maintain that soil cover and that protection over those soils. And we leave the rest for the soil microbes. This also has livestock benefits in terms of cleaner grazing, reduce worm population, reduce animal treatments, reduce antibiotics, higher welfare, and reduce livestock losses. It also increases our profitability. Last year, we saved £15,000 on not making hay, silage, and straw, which is winter feed and bedding, by keeping our sheep outside all year. And then living roots, capturing carbon, moving that carbon into the soil and locking it away. The sum of these practices has increased our soil organic matter levels at the farm by 0.2% per year, and on average over the last 7 years, in total 1.7%. So we have many physical solutions and strategies, but can we make even more better decisions by the use of digital agriculture? Farmers are genuinely time poor. Technology has to be affordable, it has to be relevant, it has to be secure, and the data needs to be farmer owned. These technologies need to be unrestricted and available to all farmers around the world to improve global food security for us all. So just briefly, I wanted to share a few of the techniques that we're using at Overbury to look at some of these latest technologies. Nitrogen fertilizer is our biggest contributor to carbon footprint. It contributes 52% of our footprint. So how can we use this resource, this energy intensive creation, to its maximum potential? So we're using soil mineral nitrogen testing to actually measure the nitrogen in the soil, measure the nitrogen in the crops, and then apply accordingly to what that plant is telling us that we need. We measure that on a weekly basis, taking leaf samples to actually look at the chlorophyll levels in those crops. Those crops are telling us when they need feed, and then we can apply accordingly. And the applications are made using spectrum equipment on our sprayers to actually look at those crops and adjust using GPS the rates that we're putting on as we go across the field, depending on what those areas of the field actually need. If I turn my mind back till 2016, we were using nitrogen at about 55 to 65% efficiency. This last year, we've been just over 90. So we are making huge strides in how we can use this. And that's having economic and environmental impact, both very beneficial in terms of air, water, and soil. Management software has also been mentioned. We collect a lot of data from carbon calculations and records, record keeping for compliance and assurance things. So how can we pull all that data together in one platform so that we're not having to enter into multiple platforms to save time? We can use that information to look at trends, performances, and some of our key KPIs. And it can be a digital hub for things like yield mapping for these biomass maps, and also things like variable rate seeding. So how can we optimize the seeds that we use and plant them at the right time, at the right depth, and at the right rate to have an even population? We can use this information to record trials. So how can we look at how, when we're changing things, is there a benefit? Is it a positive benefit? Is it a negative one? And we can use that technology. We're looking at drones, a little project called Skippy Scout, to actually look and count plants as they emerge, to have a look at the successful establishment patterns that we have hopefully received. And we can also use lots of apps in terms of marketing our crops to look at different prices from different companies. Digital social media is also crucial to what we do in terms of telling our story as farmers, creating our brand and getting that message out there, connecting with the right consumers. And that is something that we need to do more and more of as an industry. So farmers of the world, we do have a fantastic future despite these challenges. We need global and digital consensus on the use of this digital technology to make it available, affordable, and secure for farmers wherever they are around the world. Madam Ambassador, just 2 quick points. We need a regenerative-based farming system. We need to build soil health. Soil health is the key that all of these technical advances can sit above. And I did write a whole page there, but I'll leave that. And these solutions need to be adaptable. They need to be adaptable for different farmers in different regions, growing different crops on different soil types, different water problems and different markets. And that's something that everybody in this room can help us achieve. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think we have heard. Wow, you can see the big difference in the advancement of agriculture. You know, I normally I don't like to see agriculture being posited as developed versus developing countries, because I think every country has interest in developing our agriculture sector and also market. But I can't help but noticing that Mr. Jake is talking about measuring nitrate and all this in the soil already, you know, which is great. I'm not saying that, but farmers in Nigeria, in Thailand, we are just we are mainly concerned with something that would help us at increase our productivity. For example, Christina talked about the data and comparing to check out the disease. We had that in Thailand as well, but we had universities that develop an app where you have to take pictures of some leaves, so it will match what kind of disease or insect is that, so they can treat it properly. But the problem they told me is that they have to take at least 10,000 pictures of the same similar insects to make sure that the machine learning is smart enough to come up with the right insect or disease. So my question to you, Christina, is that okay, we have a vast arrays of needs for agriculture technology, which we have heard today. We cannot deny that it will be useful and helpful for farmers around the world. But is there anything that you can share further in terms of managing data, which I think all members, all speakers have raised, that this is an important thing. You can have a lot of data, but they don't have to be big. It's just they have to be the right data, you know, doesn't have to be huge amount of data. But in terms of from industry development, in developer point of view, is there anything that can be useful from both spectrums of farmers' needs in terms of technology? So something that you are working in the pipeline that you can share with us? Yeah. And maybe the data management that Jake also mentioned.
Yeah, happy to do so. So data management is key, and I shared some of the examples of how algorithms can be really helpful to help with decision making. And so a key point is getting that data. And I want to use another example that is an initiative that I'm personally really intrigued with, and that's our Food Wings venture in Ghana. And so there we use drones to collect information, so you know what's happening in the field, but also drones to really move towards the mechanization that Patience was also talking about. Instead of applying by hand with a backpack sprayer, using a drone to do that, with that, doing it much safer, but combining not just the application, combining that with the right tools and the right insights. And I know sometimes we get the question, so how is that then possible? Is then the expectation that every smallholder needs to invest in their own drone, and can they even do that? And the answer here is no, not necessarily. So what we're building there is a network of franchisees that are trained pilots that are bringing the technology and they're bringing the skill set together with access to the right technology and with the right recommendations. And so we see the response is so favorable, with many farmers coming to the days where we had a green day in the springtime was planting, and we're going to have a brown day when it came to harvest time, and really seeing how that makes a fundamental difference. It's not just incremental. This is a massive difference. And so I think that's where data science, but also very practical use really come together.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That reminds me that I share your views that, you know, for me, one thing that is a challenge for farmers to adopt higher technology is cost. And I have to give example of my country. We tend to come to understanding that individual farmers cannot afford and they cannot maintain. You know, if a drone breaks down, how can you repair a drone? Just throw it away. So in my view, you have to do it in like a cooperative setting or a small area, you know, association, that kind of thing. And I also share with you that for me, I could see a lot of potential for startup in agri-tech. You know, you can do like agricultural machinery renting services. You can have people, you call the app like Uber, please send me a contract, a tractors or a drone, and you come here and I pay you by service, and I don't have to own it or to pay for the maintenance cost. So I think agricultural services in technology is another area where, you know, those with the deep pocket money can start doing some startup. You know, I have lots of idea but no money. But but Mr. J wants to share here.
Yes, I was just going to say that's applies to all farmers all over the world. We all need to do more collaboration, no matter where you are. Sharing of information, knowledge, machinery, labor. That's not unique to developing countries. It's all of us.
So may I switch to maybe here, Miss Patience again. Okay, you have heard that here these are available technologies, and maybe what about in terms of government policy? Over here today, we have mainly negotiators. We have very high level public officers, including DDG or the WTO himself, and many ambassadors from key countries. So what kind of regulatory change or support that you as the farmers on the ground would like to see being paid more attention?
Thank you, Madam Ambassador. I think that for us, really, it is enabling policies that enable us to get access. So we've spoken that we don't have access. So I will give an example very simply with BT technology. And this PBR cowpea was a technology that came by being donated. Well, this is also kudos to Bayer. But I mean, many years ago, maybe 15 or so, but it was donated royalty-free, and it was worked on by scientists within the country to tailor it to Nigeria's use. However, there were policy that did not enable us get access to the technology. So there's a lot of policy restrictions that when negotiations are going on need to be looked at, because there has to always be an enabling environment for us as farmers to be able to access technology. And a lot of the time, governments, you know, and policy are huge limiting factors for adoption and access. So fortunately, in my country now, there's a law that allows us to be able to access BT technology, and that's why one of the innovations could come in. And I'm hoping that we will get the short stature corn that Christine spoke about. But then there must be a way to accelerate these discussions, you know, because I know that a lot of discussions go on, but we see that the world is having more pressure. There is more pressure to grow food. There's 200 million people in my country, and a good deal of the food that we eat, corn, rice, and so on, is imports. And that's simply because the farmers cannot grow sustainably. We are importing fertilizers and all of that. So it's important that when we have access to technology, that there's also a policy environment that facilitates the movement of that technology to the smallholder farmers or to whoever farmer wants to use it, because it's not enough for industry to develop technology. The industry has to go through the regulations and the countries to get the technology to farmers. And so
our access to this patient has been disrupted. So while we try to rectify that situation, may I turn to Mr. Stanley, and then one question, and then I will open the floor from the I open the floor for questions from other participants, because I think we have some time. I think from your presentation, you talk about several interesting areas of policy. But mainly, maybe I couldn't catch everything, but I think you talk mainly about agriculture related policies and how you encourage members, your farmers to adopt it. But maybe can you elaborate a little bit more on issues related to climate change? Is there any policy on the digital agriculture that would help support or reduce impact from climate change in Brazil? As like Mr. Jake had explained, climate change has disrupted a lot of yields and production of farming sector around the world. Maybe first you can share with us a little bit further on the policy of Brazil in that respect.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Ambassador, for your question. Just to give you a picture of Brazil, 80% of our farms is composed of small and medium ones. So when I talked about the agricultural zoning of climate risks, this is a very interesting program to socialize the information and take the technology to those farmers, because sometimes they need information and about the right data to sow in Brazil. And climate is very important component in our economy, not only in Brazil, but also in other countries. So we need to build a quality digital service to strengthen the innovation ecosystem, and providing, for example, warming system to give information before they lose much more. So you need to reduce. You have, for example, information related to disease in plants, when the farmers can take some pictures, send to Embrapa. We have a pipeline. So you receive the pictures, one phytopathologist understand the picture, recognize the picture, and then you go through a deep learn process and generate some models and make those models available for some of our partners here. But the point I would like to mention is using the data, you can help them with worm system, recommender systems to help them reduce losses in agriculture. And this technology sometimes, when go through small farmers, you need to contact some farmer associations to help them to adopt the solution. Because sometimes they say, you don't have connection in my area. This is a big problem in Brazil. The second, they say our labor is not skilled enough to deal with these technologies. So you need to train them. That's why you needed to do a survey to understand their needs, and also the problems they face, to select the right technologies to present to them, so that they could adopt those technologies for free sometimes, most of the times, and help them to plan and to get the most of the production in their areas around the country.
Thank you very much. Actually, I have one question for Mr. J, but I think I will open the floor for maybe 2 or 3 questions from the participants who are interested to ask some questions. Nobody wants to ask a question, so I will ask a question. I think you have mentioned in your presentation about the advancement and the multifaceted things that we can use technology to help agriculture. I think from today, my interest would be okay, if we have the government that provide enabling regulatory framework, will that be enough? What can farmers themselves do to organize? Can they help with diffusion of technology across the region or even around the world? And how everybody talk about access to technology, which is still uneven around the world. So you have anything to share about that? Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yes, part of our commitment to LEAF, Linking Environment and Farming, is that we're a demonstration farm. So we are open to other farmers, as well as school children, politicians, anybody who's interested about agriculture to come onto the farm to have a look at what we're doing. And the farmer to farmer learning is a really, really important part of that. Farmers are quite skeptical, but in order to encourage them along a more sustainable path, to actually demonstrate it, to walk across a field with a spade or a fork and dig in the soil and have a look at what's happening is really, really important. So demonstration, extension, that knowledge transfer is really, really important.
I see somebody raise a hand online. Yes. Please.
That would be me.
All right. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead, Ms.
Yes.
Page.
Okay. Yeah, so just to add to what he's just said, I think that farmers we are our own best partners, so to speak, because farmers are constantly teaching farmers what to do. Like the example I gave with no-till, it was my farmer colleagues in other parts of the world who actually convinced me to go home and try no-till. I was absolutely certain that it wouldn't work in my country. And so I think that transfer of knowledge is so vital, from areas where there is an abundance of knowledge of how to do it to parts of the world where there is less. And so when we talk about, policymakers in whatever sphere, it's important for us to focus on how do we transfer knowledge, whether it's the ability or the know-how or even just the experience from one part of the world to the other. It's so important.
Thank you so much. I have one question from the floor. Ambassador Federico, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, dear colleagues. And I was wondering, I would like to ask you regarding the no deal technology, because one of the most important differences we are having in the world in production of food is precisely what we just heard from our colleague from Nigeria, saying that she had to be recently convinced to try the no deal technology in their country. And I don't know if you're aware, but in Argentina, we had in the 70s problems with droughts in part of the country, in the north of the country. And one of our technicians from the equivalent to our Brazilian colleague, INTA, our National Institute of Technology, went to a congress in, I think, Iowa or Idaho in the US. And in one of those fairs, he heard about the no-deal technology in 1970. So the Americans were using it for an area that had a drought. He came back to Argentina in 1970 and he said, this technology might be interesting for the north of our country. Okay, in 1991, Argentina had 17 million hectares and doing agriculture, and today we have 34 million hectares from 1991 to today. Today, 94% of our arable land, our hectares, are being done with no deal. for the last 30 years. So what our colleague from Nigeria, I think, mentioned, this gap of countries with decades of experience of conservative agriculture. And as you know, I think the no deal should be an object of a whole seminar for everything that goes around. You only penetrate 10 centimeters the ground. So the nutrients are there, like you perfectly described, when the drought or the floods come. And you rotate crops that become the natural fertilizers for the next year. So WTO should do something about this. I think we should think about, bringing the gap of technology for agriculture, especially with small producers, because in Africa, where I had my experience on this, one of the big problems is that small producers, which are 90% of the small, in most of the countries, do not have the money to acquire technology by themselves. So they need the state, the government, or some cooperative approach like you mentioned to access to the technology, maybe sharing the cost between them. So I would like to know more about around the no deal, if you can expand this. Thank you.
Ms. Patience, yes, you have the floor. Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes. Okay, sir. And I would like to say also that APRISEED, which is the Argentine No-Till Farmers Association, coincidentally has agreed to help us with transferring this knowledge to Nigerian farmers. So, I mean, that is something that was very important for us because, when we talk about no-till, it's a technology that is new to us and we don't understand, but also the equipment is another major factor because when we're running away from high cost of equipment, we had to work for almost 2 years to come up with a machine that is tailored that smallholder farmers can use. And so APRISEED has agreed to give us, the technical support. They signed an MOU to give us this information for free. They've been brilliant and they've been excellent because some of my colleagues who made me start no-till are from Argentina. So I'm very happy, Your Excellency, that you asked me to speak more to this. But like you said, what we've done is one of the machines will be owned by 50 people. So it's like in a small cooperative and smallholder farmers can use that and do their 1 or 2 hectares of land and so on. And that really is the key to being able to have people access this technology, that first the technology is downsized and is appropriate. And then we get people into clusters or groups that can work that. So I think that that's also a place where we need policies to push. So I hope that my country's representatives or negotiators are also, here or listening in or can be also, because these are so vital for every country in the world because you have technology, like Madam Ambassador said, for farmers in Thailand and wherever. But when we want to deploy this technology, then we also need farmers to come on board to be able to work in our own small bits because we are always willing to pay for technology as long as we can access it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we are going to have to close soon because okay, we have another question. Yes.
I'm from the delegation of Korea. Thank you very much for this very nice presentation today. We are interested in the digital technology a lot. I would like to ask Christina, do you have any kind of publication or paper which listed and explanation of the digital technology that could be applied to agriculture? Thank you.
Sorry, can you just repeat the last part? I didn't catch it quite.
Technology.
Okay, so just more of a comprehensive overview of the technologies. I'm not aware of one publication, but I'm happy maybe to afterwards to see what we can pull together. A number of our things are on our website. Other tools we can definitely talk more about. I wonder also, kind of based on your region, there's another technology that I haven't even talked about, but that's direct seeded rice, which I think is such a tremendous opportunity to really change, also doing more with less, really reducing the water consumption per kilo of rice grown. Here, instead of having the rice seedling transplanted and grown underwater, which takes 3,000 to 5,000 liters of water per kg of rice, it allows you to directly seed into your paddy. So you use not that amount of water, and you also you cut out an entire labor step. So it's really tough to find labor today. So often the seedlings get transplanted too late, which has an impact on yield again. So I think these are another example, in addition to zero till, changing an entire production system, which needs to then come with the technology, but also the access of the information, the insights, how to grow it successfully. So happy to talk more about this and other examples, maybe following this. And that's actually an open invitation to all of you. There are questions that we couldn't get to. Please reach out. Yeah, you have our names. We would be more than happy to really engage in the conversation, because it is really important to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. If I can share with you, many technologies can be used in agriculture in my jargon, which I learned from the US companies, not completely my own, but I have an extension. You can have the ABCDEF technology, the AI, blockchain for traceability. AI you can do is with data, machine learning. Blockchain, I use it for traceability, for SPS. Cloud, which is a data management. D is data, big data. E is e-commerce, to make sure you have the market for your agriculture. F is the platform. So everything can be used in terms of upgrading agriculture, but everything comes with a cost, and we need access to technology. That's my word. But yeah, I would allow each speaker.
Am I allowed to crack a joke?
Oh, yes, please. Let's go to continue on G, like government.
No.
Actually,
Love your passion in this, and I was just about to offer you a job if you're looking for an exterior.
Maybe I love to help farmers. Okay, I think I will give maybe each speaker a couple of minutes to wrap up, and for your final message to the meeting today. So maybe I'll start with Mr. Jake, and then Ms. Patience. Yeah.
Madam Ambassador and delegates, thank you very much again for your time today. I think we do have some significant challenges around the world in producing food with a lower environmental input. I think we have a lot of technologies and a lot of knowledge around the world. We just need to move that knowledge to the areas that it can be most helpful. And I think Patience's comment about working with her farmers in cooperation together is something that can also reduce some of the challenges that farmers face. But thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you. Ms. Patience?
Madam Ambassador? Yes, thank you, Madam Ambassador. Thank you everyone for listening in today, and for joining the conversation. And like Christine said, the passion, for agriculture and to see farmers succeed, because, when we talk about feeding a starving world, ending poverty, this is also so important, for us to focus on, because, farmers are challenged. I tell you, farming is by far the hardest thing I've done in my life, and anything that we do to help farmers, whether farmers' health, farmers' productivity, farmers' income, is so vital to helping us have a food secure world. And so whatever way we work, or whatever sphere, so whether from the WTO, the UN, whether it's from private sector, and the truth is we are getting a lot of innovations coming out of different companies, you know, how do we all work together in unity to make sure that we get it to the farmer? And I will buttress what my colleague, Farmer Jake, had said, and I will say in the words of Norman Borlaug, how do we take it to the farmer? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now I have Mr. Stanley from Brazil, please, your final message to us.
Thank you, Madam Ambassador. Again, thank you for this opportunity. Embrapa is a research company funded by the government, and we have lots of technologies generate for 5 decades approximately. So most of this technology can be adapted in other countries, in other parts of the world. We are open to discuss, to collaboration with academy, governments, and private sectors to work together toward food security and to help farmers around the world. So you are open for those discussions. Thank you very much again.
Yeah, and last but not least, I give the floor to Christina.
Yeah. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for having us today. Thank you for listening to hearing from our farmers. I can only reiterate the true commitment we have as an industry to make a difference, and that I truly believe we can together make a difference. It's not just one of us. It's not just the farmers. It's not just industry. It's not just government. But all of us together can make a difference. We need to work together. And with that, I think we can take on those things that affect us and the generations that are coming behind us. So thank you for today.
Okay, yes, thank you very much. I think you all need some time to go freshen up and continue the conversation. I just think I have a few messages that I could draw from the message that we have heard today. First is every participants or the speakers, they talk about doing more with less, you know, with technology. I think when we talk about the issue of food insecurity or food security, which is a major challenge for us now, we can do it with technology, but we, like Christina said, digital technology is just a tool. We need other things that will actually enable farmers to actually really implement and use those tools. So I think we, as many of us here are government officers, we should be mindful of creating the regulatory framework that enable adoption of digital technology, as well as some other relevant maybe regulation that would lead us to higher productivity, and therefore we can all handle the issues of food security, which is a major problem now. So my final message is that we have a role to play as well, not only the business sector or government in capital or our real farmers, but we at the WTO need to put our ideas and commitment to actually seeing the declarations being implemented, and therefore benefiting the whole world through our common deed. So I hope I'm not sounding too idealistic. But yeah, so thank you very much for the sponsors. I have to mention that name again. You know, I know my roles. Okay, so today we have been blessed with support from the missions of the Argentina, Brazil, Canada, Israel, Paraguay, and the United States. And I'm very happy to be moderating this session today. I hope you find it useful. And as Christina said, Christina and Mr. Jake will be available for further discussion outside the room, and you can continue with your lunch. So thank you very much and have a good afternoon. Thank you.